podcast, A Penny for Your Thoughts with me, Steve Penny. Over the coming weeks, I'm going to be talking to some great people. I hope you enjoy listening in. Thank you. Thank you very much, Paco, for joining me today.
Sure.
I'm really looking forward to our conversation, seeing what you do and following you on LinkedIn a little bit. It's going to be quite interesting to hear about your journey.
Thank you.
So if you wouldn't mind starting off with a quick introduction of who you are and what you do, and then we'll go on from there.
Sure thing. And thanks for having me. These are always fun to do, and I always appreciate being invited. But in any case, I'm Paco Uybarreta, and I've been on this planet for 47 years, but for pretty much my adult life. I've been a professional test pilot aviator. I've been in aerospace for the last 25 to 26 years. Started off in the Air Force for the first 14 years as an operational and instructor, as well as an experimental test pilot. And then for the last almost 12 to 13 years, I've been out in industry as kind of doing the same thing, but just not so much military. Out in the industry, again, doing flight tests as a pilot and engineer, and went off to Bombardier, then Scale Composites, and then for the last 7 years, I've been out here in New Zealand, first flying the Martin jetpack as its chief test pilot.
Oh, wow.
Yeah.
Okay.
And then the last 5 years, I've been sort of like the Mandalorian, a sort of a mercenary of sorts, contract test pilot for a multiple of organizations, right, doing pretty much the same work, just on different vehicle types.
Yep.
Okay. That's me.
Okay, fantastic. Yeah. And family?
Yeah, I have one very beautiful and loyal, intelligent wife, Janice, and 3 somewhat grown or growing children. So one's in high school. Yeah. Actually, one's about to finish high school. The other one's sort of in the middle of high school. And the other one's going to start high school next year.
That's a challenging age.
Yeah, it is.
All teenagers.
Challenge accepted.
Yeah, you kind of, I mean, we've got 3 kids ourselves, and they're all grown, they're all adults now. My youngest is, she's 21 this year, into her 3rd year at university, so she's away from home. And, it's good. It's really good that they're growing up and doing their own thing. The teenage years were definitely a challenge.
It's a challenge for, me and my wife. I'm sure it was the same for your family. But, one of the best things that I was taught in high school is the transition from parent to child to learning how to become best friends.
It's difficult to be your child's friend, I think, because you have to hold them to account.
Yeah.
And they don't like that.
Yeah.
Their friends don't really do that either.
Yeah, it's a different relationship.
It is.
Yeah,
definitely.
yeah. It's a balancing act all the way. Yeah.
So, been in the military since high school?
Oh, I was, it was pretty much starting in college.
Right.
So, in the U.S., they have a program called the Reserve Officer Training Corps. Yep. And it's essentially an officer training program while you're going to college or university. So I did that for 4 years with the Air Force program. And that led me into a guaranteed job after university, which is always good. Always good.
Always good.
Yep.
So what attracted you to go down that route?
Oh gosh, all different things, all different directions. On one hand, I was born in the mid 70s. Grew up in the sort of the 80s. So you had the right stuff. You had Top Gun. You had Star Wars. You had all that. Sort of like flying adventure, sci-fi, TV and movies, as well as books. Yeah. And
the Cold War.
Oh, and that was that. It just there is that. Yeah, there is the Cold War. Yeah. I lived in the kind of New York City, New Jersey area, like right on the base leg of Teterboro or the final approach fix of Newark and JFK and all, and so. I had airplanes flying over me all the time, as well as a great uncle who was a World War II fighter pilot.
Oh, wow.
And the stories from his days during World War II, he flew in the Pacific. And so everything and, all the timing and all the factors, I think, so certainly influenced me.
Around Midway then?
He was in the Philippines.
Oh, okay.
Yeah, so he, the battle that he participated in was like from the invading Japanese at the time. So lost at sea. And but as as I said before, so many factors led to an interest in aviation.
Okay. Would you say has been your biggest challenge so far?
Oh, you mean professionally, personally?
Yeah, well, either or, whichever you are willing to share.
Yeah. I think the challenge is kind of a first world, it's almost a first world problem.
Yeah.
I think it's something we probably see towards the end of last century into this sort of generation. So many options.
Yeah.
We get a bit of this decision paralysis. More than 7 to 10 options, and then you just don't know what to do. And then there's always looking at the other side and going, is the grass greener over there? And what are the Jonesies up to? And so forth. And so I think that is a good problem to have.
Yep.
I think it's a problem that luckily I was able to identify as a good problem. Mm-hmm. And you mitigate the effects of that problem by remembering that there are 100 good options. Yeah. You just have to kind of pick one and stick to one.
Well, I think one of the things I learned fairly early in my career is not to say no to opportunities.
Yeah, absolutely.
Because you don't know where they're going to lead.
You don't know.
And, you know, there's a few times where I've made moves that other people have suggested might not be a good idea.
Yeah.
But when I've looked back on them, I've always learned something from those decisions. And sometimes it's, I don't want to do that again. But usually there's another skill that I've picked up or a piece of experience I wouldn't otherwise have got.
It's so funny you say that. Absolutely. I think every major chapter change in my life had a lot of naysayers leading up to that. Just like you said. Yeah. People say, don't do this, don't do that. That's not common wisdom.
Why do you want to do that?
Yeah. And following your heart, I think, is the principle to overcome that challenge of decision paralysis.
Yes. I think the other thing with modern life, I'm certainly seeing from my kids' generation, is that they don't have a career. Yeah. They have a series of careers. Yeah. And they're quite happy to change completely. Yeah. Whereas when I grew up, you got a job and that's what you did. Yeah. Until you retired.
Yeah, absolutely. It's changed big time.
Might do it for 5 years, might do it for 2 years. Yeah. Then I'll do something else. Yeah. And I think that's a good thing because it gives you a lot more different experiences. Yeah. You know, you're not pigeonholed into you can only ever be that, which I think is a good thing.
It's a good thing. I find for myself, as you mentioned it, and now you've made me sort of think of something new. I agree with you on both ends. For me, it's a bit of a hybrid. Mm-hmm. It's felt like I've stuck to aviation and aerospace as a professional pilot all along, like you said, the old school way. Yeah. But I've shifted all over the place within that kind of broad lane. So it feels like both.
I'd like to say the same. My career started for a small contracting company in the UK, then worked for the BBC for a number of years. Yeah. Same thing, but in their in-house team. Yeah. I worked in the Middle East. I'm now working here. So I've kind of used the job, still doing the same job, but I've travelled around the world and lots of different experiences with doing it. So,
and it's so important to travel.
Yeah. I mean, if you've got a job that's portable, it's fantastic. Yeah,
it's the way to see the world, and I don't think that's ever changed that. I have some friends and family. It may be the same for you or other people, but a lot of people have never really left where they were born and raised. And it's wild. To me, it's like so wild. And it seems to be a lot of friends and family, which is, to each his own. But for me, it could never have been that way.
No. I mean, obviously I had to go back to the UK recently for my mum's funeral. And I went back to the town that I grew up in. And like you say, a lot of my sort of family, I don't really have any friends there still. Yeah. So I've lost touch. But a lot of my family is still in that same town.
Yeah, same.
They've always been there. Yeah. Their parents have always been there.
Yeah.
The kids are going to be there.
Yeah.
It's like, there's so much more of the world to see.
I think it's that they're just some people who might be more exploratory, more nomadic. Yeah. I think there was like a Myers-Briggs categorization. My daughter made me sort of take it. And it's a protagonist.
Yeah.
A protagonist is this sort of like hero of their own story adventurer. And it might be, something that some people are by personality. Some people are just not.
It's not. I mean, I think you need both types of people. So you need some people that's going to create the base that everybody else stands on. And then you need the people that's going to push the boundaries as well, so that things grow and move.
Absolutely. Yeah, it's funny that you say that, because it's like, just seems like there's sort of room for everyone. There's something for everyone to do.
I think the biggest challenge is that we all have to learn to be nicer to one another. Because there's too much anger and hate around at the moment. And
love each other. Simple rule. Not enough of that.
No, definitely not. Okay, so focusing on your career now, you were in the US, test piloting.
Yep.
What was it that brought you to New Zealand? Was it the Morton jetpack opportunity, or was it something else?
Pretty much. I had left the Air Force in 2012, and then I was working for a couple of North American companies. But at the time, I was at Scaled Composites as an engineering test pilot. Pretty much the same stuff that I'd been doing. And LinkedIn is an odd and interesting and funny thing.
Yes.
And let's just say one recruitment invitation message led to another, to a phone call. And before you know it, it was Fly New Zealand made jetpacks. A country I've never been to, a vehicle I'd never flown before. Yeah. And yet it was certainly a promotion, an opportunity. And it was definitely, like we were talking about before, just it sung to my heart, the adventure, the wild imagination.
Science fiction into science fact.
Totally.
Isn't it?
and not to mention, most Americans, and I'm really oversimplifying, do not really know a thing about New Zealand. So let's say 1 in 10 may know, but they might either have a friend who told them something or had visited on a holiday. But all the reviews of Americans of New Zealand is generally extremely high. Yeah. So I'd only heard that New Zealand's wonderful. And just on that, plus jetpacks, I was like, let's go for it. Yeah.
How did your wife feel?
Well, she was not that excited right away. And so I just sort of negotiated with the company. And I said, look, let me do a few months of sort of a probationary trial period before, emigrating my entire clan over to New Zealand. And they were totally cool with that.
Excellent.
Yeah. And so just a couple months, this was now, February till about June of 2016. I was just here checking it out, so to speak. And it was exactly what I had envisioned. And so I gave sort of the green lights, and she gave me the green lights, and then they moved just in the June of 2016 to follow me. Yep.
Fantastic.
Yeah.
Very good. I mean, my New Zealand journey was, my wife's from here originally, from Wellington. So mine was a little bit more family oriented. We already knew what the place was like. We'd been over for a couple of holidays and kind of knew the scope of the land. But bringing the kids was a big decision. Because my eldest was in high school.
Right.
And doing really well.
Yeah.
It was quite disruptive.
It is disruptive, especially high school. Yeah.
So that was a bit of a talking point for a little while, and it took her quite a while for her to forgive us for dragging her around her school that she really loved. But she's doing well now. She's actually working for me. She's
good.
One of my teammates in the office out there.
Oh, good. Yeah.
So, I think we've got over that now.
Yeah.
It's only taken 12 years.
Sometimes change is only, sort of reflected upon as a good thing in retrospect, and that's okay.
Yeah, a lot of the time, people generally don't like change. It's a painful process.
We're creatures of habit.
Yes, exactly.
Yep.
I agree with that.
Yep. Change is like medicine sometimes.
It is.
Yep.
Good for you, but doesn't taste very nice.
Not at the time.
Very true.
Yeah.
So what would you say, if you were focusing on your career, what's your proudest achievement?
Oh, gosh. I would say, in general, first flights of aircraft. For an experimental test pilot, that's kind of like going to the, U.S. Super Bowl, American football championship. That is the big game. A lot of test pilots kind of wait their entire careers, and it never happens that they get that chance, the opportunity to do a first flight of a new type. And so I've been privileged to do a few military and a few, out in industry. Did one, obviously, Martin Jetpack, it was called the Series 1. And even just the handful that I've done, those I would pile together as a greatest achievement for me professionally. Yeah.
Okay. I think that's something to be very proud of, to be honest.
Yeah.
It's very exciting as well.
It's exciting, yeah. It's scary too.
I mean, where's the Morton jetpack going to go? What's the commercial use of it?
Well, the company stopped operations a couple of years ago. It was about February of 2019, I think, is when it stopped. And it kind of got cut up into different bits and pieces around the world, just generally speaking. The intent was originally I believe, to be sort of let everyone fly, but in reality, due to sort of noise issues, regulatory issues, safety issues, plus it's just really hard to pack a lot of like fuel or energy.
Short trips, I would imagine. Yeah.
It would just be short. The first jetpack I flew, you got a couple of minutes, and it was always kind of feeling like an emergency. The last model I flew, that was great because you could easily get about 20 minutes, which is heaps of time in a jetpack. Yeah. There was special, sort of they call first responder missions, sort of, I dare say military, but maybe police, search and rescue applications. But as you can imagine, it's pretty difficult to get something that's reliable and something that you could like spread around the public with all that noise and without sort of dangerous.
Killing themselves.
Yeah, absolutely. That's the other.
Nothing cars.
Oh yeah, yeah. Can you imagine? I mean, if we landed a jetpack right outside the building, I mean, the noise, all the sort of air blown around, and gosh.
Yeah. Do you think there's an opportunity to look at an alternative fuel, like doing battery powered?
I think we looked at battery. Battery is difficult because there's just not a lot of energy density within batteries. I mean, there's already electric flying aircraft, but you're still dealing with really heavy for really little juice, so to speak. I think the jetpack, we just need some kind of it's more of a chemical engineering revolution.
A solid fuel type.
That's right.
Like
Yeah.
you use on space going.
That's right. Yeah. There's something that it's not as much aeronautical. It's more of an energy, physics, like nuclear.
It's just how long you can fly.
Yeah.
But you say nuclear. I don't know whether it's true or not. Been a few things on Facebook and other social media about this Chinese battery that's got a 50-year life.
I have not heard of that. I'd love to hear more about that.
They're talking about it for cell phones and saying you never charge your phone, basically.
Yeah.
It goes forever.
Yeah, I mean...
And, if you can develop that, they're developing that kind of technology. I don't know whether it's true or not.
Yeah.
It could just be fake news.
It could be fake news.
Around.
Yeah.
But I can't see why you wouldn't be using that for a lot of other things.
Oh, gosh. Hopefully it's just a matter of time. The question is when and in what way and at what cost. Yeah. Because all of these, it's a typical engineering sort of equation. There's no such thing as a free lunch.
No.
And so when you have something that's awesome, it comes at an awesome cost.
Yes,
yeah.
Exactly.
Yeah.
It's never going to be cheap.
Yeah.
That's very true.
Yeah.
So you've obviously had quite a few experiences from what we're talking about.
Yep.
Is there something that you've learnt or seen that's fundamentally impacted it on you and changed how you look at the things around you?
Absolutely. From one perspective, I think some astronauts have coined the term oversight effect. Yeah. Oversight effect is when you see things from a very unique, special perspective, and in sort of astronaut terms, it's seeing that curvature of the Earth in relation to space. Not flat. If it's flat, it's a circle. If it's flat, I mean, I've seen the curvature gone up high enough into the atmosphere, over 70,000 feet in a U-2. Yep. And have seen, yes, there is curvature. While it's not technically space, it was enough to give me that oversight effect where the borders between nations, the certainly individual people and groups of people. You no longer, you lose sight of that like just from a couple thousand feet. And I think the contrast of this pale blue dot to the rest of the universe, it's pretty daunting.
Yeah.
And it would be nice if everyone could experience that, I think. Yeah, and then we'd be nicer to each other.
Well, there's that photograph that was taken by one of the early astronauts.
Yeah.
And the sort of the commentary around it is a picture of the Earth.
Yeah.
Black sky all around it.
Yeah.
And it's everyone who's ever lived is on that.
Has been there.
Apart from the person taking the photo.
That's right. That's right.
Everyone who's ever lived. And I just think that's
profound.
That kind of changes your view of things.
Yeah,
it?
yeah.
And you think that, and I've sort of listened to a guy called Professor Brian Cox, I don't know if you know, the physicist.
Yeah, I've heard.
And he talks about the sort of the rarity of us.
Yeah.
That we're probably, at the moment, the only intelligent species as we know it in our galaxy.
Yeah, yeah. It's interesting you say that because that is I'm not sure, there's all this conspiracy theories or aliens but what's scarier, that they're aliens or that we're the only ones? I think the latter is scarier.
We're the only ones.
Yeah,
is the scary.
that's scary.
Because I think the comment that he made was that if we are the only sentient beings, then it's entirely on us to record the universe.
Yeah.
There's nobody else that can do it, or no other being that can do it. And we need to recognise our uniqueness.
And until we prove ourselves otherwise, it's almost an assumption we should make that it's up to us. Yeah.
When you think about the life cycle of the universe in billions of years, civilizations are not going to last billions of years.
No.
So the chances of two civilizations being developed enough to find one another at the same time in a universe as big as the one we're in, pretty slim.
Right.
And also you're talking about such vast distances that you may have to travel that the chances of them being close enough for us to find them are even slimmer.
Yeah, I think so. It is actually, it's so mind-boggling because it's so difficult to comprehend or care about that we can't be as mind-boggled as we should be.
No, we can't understand the numbers.
We can't understand it. Yeah. And that is, but at least some people who realize that, it's so mind-boggling that we can't boggle our minds, but we know we maybe should get to that point later. I think that's important. Yeah.
I think being open-minded to possibilities is important.
Yeah.
And the other thing that Professor Cox said is that there's a number of physicists, himself included, that are of the view that it's more likely than not that we're living in a simulation.
I really like this idea because it's sort of the Matrix. I know Star Trek hit upon it a couple times with sort of these holograms, and I know other sci-fi and other literature have hit upon it. But, our conversation right now, what we're experiencing, I mean, at the end of the day, it's just electrochemical reactions, which you can even take the chemical out and run it on a non-chemical sort of electrical sort of...
Well, that's what we're doing.
That's what we're doing.
We're converting electrochemical reactions into electrical.
It's electrical. And you can run that in... Did we talk about... I mean, I think it's on Netflix, the Black Mirror series. Yes. He runs through all those scenarios, and I love it.
A lot of them are very close to reality, aren't they? And that's what's quite scary about them.
Very scary, yeah. It's so interesting, and we have to grapple with it. It's important to have those thoughts and discussions about those things. Did we just go on a tangent? Awesome.
I think we might.
Awesome.
Just a little bit.
I like it.
Who would you say over your life has been the biggest influence on you?
Do you mean someone I directly know or someone who I just sort of read about? Either or.
Someone that's inspired you in some way, whether it's a family member or a friend, or whether it's somebody that you know of but I've never met?
Yeah. I'm going to have to go with my dad. It's funny because, growing up, your perspective changes. And he used to be very sort of tough in terms of expectations. Mm-hmm. He had some really interesting and funny, rules, words of advice, things to do, things not to do. He would say, it's okay to be in a gang as long as you're the leader. Or, he advised me, he's like, join the military. They will give you the very best education, training, and experiences you could ever come across. Yep. He would just have dozens of these kinds of adages and words of advice.
The military is a big gang, isn't it, really?
It is a big gang. It's a gang. It's a mafia. No. But I shouldn't say that. But in any case, the words he had at the time as a young sort of child, it's like, what is he talking about? But then pretty much everything he said, or if you interpreted it properly, everything he said was absolutely true in hindsight. Mm-hmm. And I wrote him a letter thanking him. I think it was last Father's Day. At his age, he doesn't need a new shirt. He doesn't need a new TV. He doesn't need a new watch. Yeah. I just wrote him a letter, and I thanked him for all of I kind of listed and paraphrased. He probably forgot most of the things he told me, but I just thanked him for every single thing that I might have not listened to at first. Yeah. But eventually I went, no, you're proven right. Yeah. You're proven right, and thanked him for it.
I think we all have that relationship with our children. Mm-hmm. You try to give them advice when they're too young to accept it. Yeah. But you just hope that as they grow, they'll remember it and it will eventually be good advice. Yeah,
it'd be good advice. On the flip side, and I haven't written my mother a letter yet, but my dad was always pro-profession. Do this for your profession. Do this. Whereas my mom was much more about life in general.
Those type of thing rather than...
Yeah. More like, those achievements or those goals are all good and dandy. But it was more about just finding happiness in having a family, for example. Yeah. Settling down. More sort of wholesome concepts, which, again, proven 100% right. Yeah.
I think having that sort of stable base as a family. Yeah. I've been through some difficult times at work. Yeah. And it's very true what they say, that your family will show up at your funeral. Yeah. Your work colleagues won't. Yeah. So, if you've got a good relationship and a strong family relationship, that helps you get through a lot of stuff.
It's funny how this circles back around, Steve, because, a colleague I just lost, we went to his service, and his eulogy summarized his life, and it was just a handful of great accomplishments professionally, but it was all about being a great husband and a great son and a great father is what it was all about. So it's true what we just said, I think. Yeah.
I agree. Totally. Yeah. So you're obviously very passionate about your work, but what do you do to relax and recharge?
Yeah. It's very circular, and I think it's important especially from my line of work, I have to stay healthy and fit. If I can't pass my pilot medical exam, I can't fly. So I pretty much, throw the football around with my son, swim almost every day, and try to stay fit. And it's, physical fitness for passing my pilot medical, which is my passion and my profession. Yeah. But I think any type of sort of physical exercise is just good for your mental well-being. It's just a stress relief. And it doesn't matter what it is. Yeah. I found something that's just kind of what I've been doing. Whether it's cycling or whether it's dancing or just have something that, you just break a sweat. Yep. That, and then I kind of play around with the piano. All right. and just anything with a family. Me and my wife have lately been doing a lot of karaokeing every weekend. So we'll not good at it.
I'm not.
Not saying we're good at it, but just staying connected and grounded with the less than 10 people that are the most important people in your lives.
Yeah.
Yep.
Yeah, I think that's something else I've sort of reflected on of late, is that my circle of friends has got smaller as I've got older.
Yeah.
Because you realise that some people aren't really friends.
Yeah.
They're there for what they can get.
Yeah. Yeah.
And as you get older, you start to run out of patience for those kinds of people.
Yeah.
Well, I certainly do.
I agree with that. You really can't. I think it's just an evolutionary thing. We're dealing with billions of humans, and the reality is we're not really wired for more than about a dozen, I think.
Yeah.
Yeah.
People that we can really connect with and spend time with and not get too frustrated by.
Yeah. On Facebook, I supposedly have like 300 friends, and I'm pretty sure they're not my friends.
Yeah, the same with LinkedIn. I mean, I've got
Yeah.
a couple of thousand people I'm connected on LinkedIn.
Yeah.
And I've probably met 20 of them.
That's right. Yeah. Yeah.
That's life.
It is what it is. Yeah.
But I mean, that sort of takes me in another direction. Looking at social media.
Yeah.
What's your view on your kids' relationship with social media?
I have to admit, I've been extremely, we'll use the word conservative. Mm-hmm. So when it was sort of time, according to their sort of peers, of getting devices, I actually was much of a late allower or a late enabler with devices. So, like, for example, my eldest, she really didn't get her first phone until like pretty much a year and a half ago. And I had her write a contract. Here, what are the rules of engagement for this? And they're ones that you would expect. And the other one was, I didn't buy her own phone. She needed to, put some skin on the table, pay for half of it. And I thought it was very timely that, here in New Zealand now that they've basically limited phones from primary and intermediate schools and high schools is great.
Yeah.
I was sort of ahead of that, but not on purpose. Yeah. I tell my kids, and I told them a long time ago, that what if I handed you a gun? What if I handed you the keys to the car? Wouldn't that be dangerous? Don't you think you need a certain level of maturity and sort of training on that before you were to even get that? The phone, the device, whether it's an iPad or a device, it's kind of like a Harry Potter magic wand.
Yeah.
Good and evil, but you can do a lot of it. Yeah. It's scary.
I think one of the things that really scared me is we went to a presentation at one of the kids' schools, and it was by a police officer talking about safety on the internet.
Yep.
And the comparison he made is, he said, when you're looking at predators nowadays, when you were kids, the grooming process to get access to the child could take weeks, maybe months.
Yep.
Now it takes hours.
Yeah. Nothing at all. Yeah.
As soon as they've got control, which they get very quickly, nothing you can do.
There's nothing you can do. That's right.
And that realising that your kids run that risk every time they go online.
Yeah.
They go into these games that got chat rooms.
Yeah.
They think they're talking to people their own age,
Yeah.
and they're not.
Yeah.
Just like, it makes you almost freeze inside, because you feel like there's nothing you can do, really, to protect them, other than maybe give them some understanding of the risks they're taking and be as open with them as you can, so if something does happen, they're not afraid to tell you.
To tell you, yeah, absolutely.
That's about as good as it can get, I think.
It felt like we were having conversations a lot earlier than I'd like to about those types of risks and issues, because of the fact that there were so many devices being widespread. Their friends, their peers at young ages were getting these, and I just knew that this is a bad idea.
Yeah.
And I ask them to sort of like understand and just sort of have like almost a little bit of blind faith that there's no one that has their best interest in mind more than me and you know, their mother. Mm-hmm. And just to trust us.
Yeah, absolutely.
Yeah.
And I mean, just another thing that I heard, I sort of listened to Steve Jobs a few years ago.
Yeah.
And he made a comment that the explosion of social media for our children is the largest social experiment that's ever been done.
That's correct.
And we won't know the impact until the kids are fully grown and have gone through their entire life.
Absolutely.
And that's quite a scary thought.
It is a scary thought.
You think about the fact that a lot of kids now struggle in social situations.
Yeah.
Because they're used to having a screen between them and the world.
Oh, I've seen it too many times. It's terrible.
I don't know how to hold a conversation.
Oh, you know, there's so many examples of that I've seen or I've been part of firsthand. Yeah. You know, and it's another thing. Like I think my dad said something like this related to this when I was young. He said, when any of these new fads come out, you know, back then it was like in the 80s, it was like fluorescent or it was like artificial sweetener. Yeah, there was all these new things. He said, wait 10 years. Yeah. That's only when you'll know what the real effects are. You know, sort of the experiment point you're making.
VHS or Betamax?
Yeah.
Betamax was better.
Yeah.
VHS was better advertised.
Yeah, and there's no doubt that with the younger generation, the social media is having an effect. Yeah. And it's a scary effect. I don't think it's all bad. Yeah. I'm just as guilty. I've used all this new technology to enable work. I think it's wonderful, but it's a tool, and it really is a magic wand. That's the scary part about it.
It's a very powerful tool.
Powerful, yeah.
And anything that's powerful can be used for good or bad.
Absolutely, yeah.
Okay.
Yeah.
Moving
on.
So, talking about technology and science fiction.
Yeah.
If you could time travel back to you at 20.
Okay.
Is there a piece of advice you'd want to give yourself?
I'm not sure, because there was a Star Trek episode where Picard regretted dying due to an artificial heart that he had as an old man because he was such a jerk when he was a young lieutenant. And he got into a bar fight, and got stabbed and so forth. Yeah. And he tended to be a lot of regret. After I watched that episode, and this episode came out, I think it was in the 90s, it's called Tapestry, it made me think. And I go, it's so easy to have that hindsight bias. It's so easy to look back 2020 and go, I wish, I regret, I could have if I did this instead. But the thing is, if you didn't make those mistakes, they're called mistakes, so maybe they're learnings, that's a better word for it. Things might have turned out differently. Yep. Even the smallest micro decisions.
Well, it's the butterfly effect.
Yeah.
Make a tiny change. Has a massive impact.
Absolutely. And so I wonder, even going back in time and then changing my mind and going back, would that butterfly effect change everything? It could. And so
the kids you've got and the wife you've got, and the life you've got.
I've done a lot of things that you could argue are mistakes, but I think we all have.
Yep.
But they caused things to turn out in ways that, you know, in that episode, they called it tapestry because if you pull one thread of the tapestry, the rest of it can just completely unravel. Yeah. And so is that something that I'd want to do? You know, I'd need some conditions where I'd need things to stay the same or better. Yeah. But then what does that even mean? Yeah.
I mean, there's so many films and books that touch on the subject of time travel.
Yeah.
And all of them have that same kind of thing, which is you go back because you made a mistake.
Yeah.
You want to correct that mistake.
Yeah.
But correcting it changes everything after it.
Or like just the Marvel Loki thing. it's a so when you time travel, you start this other gosh, and then it just
very confusing.
causes a mess. So, long answer to a short, straightforward question. I think I know what you mean, but I'd kind of be worried about that if I was given that offer, Yeah.
And I think I usually answer that question saying, don't turn down any opportunities.
Yeah.
I didn't.
Yeah. So you were good.
So, the thing that it's advice I give to people at the start of their careers.
Yeah.
Make sure you take every opportunity.
Yeah.
And it's because I did that.
You did that.
So I wouldn't go back and
don't need to.
anything.
Yeah.
For the same reason as you. I like where I've got to.
Yeah.
I like the family I've got. I like the work that I do.
Yeah.
The life that I lead.
Yeah.
So everything I've done has got me to this point. So why change it?
If you and I feel the same way, having not really known each other before, and we're sitting here having a possible simulation about it, we didn't do too bad in the video game.
No, you didn't do too bad.
Didn't do too bad.
No, absolutely.
Yep. That's good to hear.
Here's another one that can go anywhere you like.
Okay.
If you could have a dinner and a conversation with someone alive or dead or fictional, who would you pick?
Gosh. I would probably want to talk to... I'm going to go with Neil Armstrong.
Yep.
That is one person that I admired. I've watched so many biography, sort of documentary. He's had a lot of things on sort of YouTube.
Yeah.
There are late movies of him, The First Man and so forth.
Yeah.
But it's one person that I think I've only met one Apollo astronaut.
Okay.
His name was Gene Cernan. He was actually the last human astronaut on the moon. But I would have until recently, yeah. Until recently, yeah. But yeah, I mean, I probably could have met Neil Armstrong at one point, but I never did. So I would have loved to sit down with him because I did have a drink and nice chat with Gene Cernan, and that was mind-boggling. Just the way he was able to articulate what it was like to land on the moon and be there. To hear it from someone like Neil Armstrong would have been maybe as extraordinary.
People that have actually done that.
Yeah, it's incredible. Yeah.
It's like being the person that found the Titanic.
Yeah.
There's very few people that have got down that far and
Yeah.
seen that ship, and the last lot exploded.
Oh, gosh. Well, that's another... We could have a whole podcast about that, can't we? The irony of that.
Yeah.
Yeah.
It does make you wonder why people take those risks to some extent.
Yeah.
Did they really understand what they were doing? I don't think Neil Armstrong probably really appreciated how isolated he was going to be.
Yeah. I always think about that.
13 that nearly didn't get back.
Yeah.
You really are at the edge of human experience and human ability when you're out there.
There's more than bliss in ignorance. Whenever I fly and I look over, sort of like flying over the shore and out to the horizon, the ocean, I go, if the early explorers who were sailing around the world could see this, would they go forward? Yeah. Probably not. They'd probably go, no way, you crazy, I'm not going on a boat that far.
I can't imagine being the first person to sail across the Pacific.
I can't either.
Because when you look at it on a globe and you realise it's more than 50% of the surface of the Earth is that one ocean. Yeah. If you knew that before you set out,
you wouldn't do it. You wouldn't do it.
The close.
Yeah.
Because you got lost.
Yeah. There is like an advantage of being ignorant. It's a good thing.
To some extent.
Yeah. The early days of aviation too, where, we were talking about maritime, but same with aviation. I mean, we look back at some of the early accidents, but I go, no one knew better back then. It was still experimental. It was still innocent. And that's how we learned. And
going in with their eyes open.
Yeah.
Not necessarily with all the information.
No, it was all
knew.
new. Yeah, no one knew. And that's probably a good thing.
That's probably a good thing.
Yeah.
That's probably a good thing.
Yeah.
Do you read much?
I do.
What's at the moment? What are you reading, and what would you say is the favourite book that you've read?
I read a wide variety of things. I read kind of like certainly aeronautical, aerospace, history, aviation, space. That one is probably pretty obvious. I'm working on a PhD, and it's in mechanical engineering with a focus on aerospace. And so I'm doing a lot of reading just required for that research there. And that's my happy place. I can stay there, and it's work, it's study, it's passion. But I also love to branch out to sort of geopolitical, what's going on in the bigger picture of societies and the world. And I'd say the last thing that I was reading that really kind of put me in awe intellectually was it's a book called Sapiens.
Okay.
And it talks about the very beginning and all the different ages and revolutions of Homo sapiens sapiens. And but in a perspective that I think others haven't really thought or wrote in a way before, and all in one book. So that's been really famous, just fantastic to read.
Okay.
Yeah.
Learning a lot.
It's just putting things into perspective. It's more of like, I sort of knew something like that, but I never thought of it or read something the way it was expressed. Yeah.
I guess when you think about Sapiens, in the life of the Earth, was the Earth about 5 billion years old?
Yeah.
Sapiens have been around for a few 100,000 years.
The last few seconds of the year, if it's a span of a year, it's just at the very end. Yeah.
And it just, when you look at it in that perspective, again, it makes that idea of intelligent life elsewhere.
Yeah.
You realise just how rare it is.
Yeah. It took a lot to get to this point, and therefore it's got to be rarefied. Yeah.
It's 5 billion years, so
yeah.
The universe is around about 17 billion years old.
Yeah.
So there might be 3 lots of time.
But where are they? Not anywhere near. Nowhere near. Yeah. Yeah.
Travel. Do you travel much? You obviously travelled a bit.
I did. Yeah. I like to travel. It's I think it was sort of hand in hand with the choice of profession. Yeah. I knew, being a pilot would entail travel. So I've been to probably 35 different countries.
Is there anywhere you haven't been?
Yeah, I haven't been to Antarctica yet.
Right. Is that somewhere that's on your list?
It's sort of on a list. I'm not going to do everything it takes to get there. Right. I'm kind of hoping that the opportunity presents itself. Yeah. I haven't been to...
There are cruises.
There are cruises, but they're pretty expensive, and you got to slice the time.
Yeah.
And I know enough people kind of in my sort of professional network that have gone there, and I'm hoping that, there might be a project or something that takes me there one of these days. Right. Yeah.
And I had the same experience.
Yeah.
We bid for a project to redevelop the Scott base.
Yeah.
Down on the Antarctic.
Yeah.
Came second.
Yeah.
And that would have entailed a long trip over there, about 2 months, onto the Antarctic ice shelf.
Yeah, yeah.
Unfortunately, didn't get the work.
It didn't happen.
Yeah. That would have been cool to be there, I think.
Yeah.
It's, again, one of those places that not lots of people get to.
Yeah,
A few thousand.
And we're so close.
Yeah, we are. I can feel it sometimes.
Yeah, I know. Like this morning. Yeah.
It makes you realise just how close you are.
Yeah.
You look out south from Christchurch, you're looking at the Antarctic.
Yeah.
And you look out east, and you're looking at the Pacific.
Yeah. It's such a unique location where we are. Yeah.
It's kind of on the edge of the world.
It is. It's a lifeboat.
It is, just about. Yeah. And unlike the other large landmass nearby, not everything here wants to kill you.
Exactly. It's actually really scary how different Australia is.
Australia is, my brother lives over there, and he's been there for about 15, 16 years now.
Yeah.
And he's got gators crawling through his garden, snakes and spiders and scorpions, and you just think, jeez.
Oh yeah. Me and my wife years ago were visiting and had some kind of close encounter with dingoes, kind of circling our little. We're just staying in this kind of like little farm house or whatever, and like you said, everything once you did. Everything thinks you're food.
Yeah, I mean, even the plants.
Yeah.
Which is not saying, surely the human race should take a hint when it's given one.
Yeah,
we don't
exactly.
want you here. Leave us alone.
Yeah, exactly.
You like to play the piano.
Mm-hmm.
Is there an artist or performer or band that you've never seen that you'd really like to see?
Ooh, that's a good one. Let me think. Probably, so with the piano, I'm not good, but I do like playing sort of Billy Joel, Elton John, and Stevie Wonder type of songs. I haven't seen Stevie Wonder. Of those three, I haven't seen him live or in concert. Been lucky enough to see Billy Joel, Elton John, but not Stevie Wonder. So I'd probably go with that.
Stevie Wonder.
Yeah, probably. Mm-hmm.
Who would you say was a favourite artist that you have seen?
Oh, the other two. I mean, yeah, and they went on tour a few times, but I saw them, they were doing this sort of like, I think they called it the back-to-back tour, where Billy Joel and Elton John were on tour together, playing each other's songs on dueling pianos. Amazing.
That would have been amazing.
It's amazing, yeah. Yeah. Mm-hmm.
I was very, very lucky that in the mid-80s, I went to see Queen.
Oh,
the
yeah.
Live Magic tour.
Yes.
And
so lucky. Yeah. So lucky.
Yeah.
Imagine that, right? Yeah.
And that was...
died so young.
Park,
yeah.
Which was, I think it was 250,000.
Now that is a rare experience.
So that...
Yeah.
I mean, I've seen videos of that, and I think, Jesus, I was there.
You were there. Yeah. And then suddenly he was gone.
Yeah. Suddenly, I mean, not that long after that, he was gone. Early 90s, he was on his way out, unfortunately. But, I mean, the thing that sticks with me about him as a performer is that he had amazing control of the audience.
Yeah.
They were hanging on his every word and his every action.
Everything, yes.
The moment he came on the stage.
Yeah.
And if you've seen the Bohemian Rhapsody, when he does the Live Aid thing, that's exactly what it was like. Really. You felt you had no control. You had to do what he said.
Yeah.
And it was. I've never seen a performer like him since.
It's so sad that he's gone and he was just sort of here and there, like just suddenly. And what's also, pretty amazing is that the large following he has among the young generation. My kids love Queen.
Absolutely. Because his music hasn't aged at all.
Yeah.
It's still relevant, still enjoyable now.
Yeah.
And, it just,
Yeah. I wish I thought of Queen. I would have said Queen now that you mentioned it. Now that you mention it, can I change my answer?
Well, my family, obviously, we had a bit of a discussion about what we were going to play at my mum's funeral service. Yeah. And we picked 3 songs. Yeah. One of them was Dire Straits, Love Over Gold. Yep. The other one was Nessun Dorma by Pavarotti, which she really loved. And the last one, for her sort of the final exit, was I Want to Break Free. Yeah. Because what a song! And she really loved Queen as well. Yeah, and so it kind of they're a band that's close to my family. Yeah, and their music means a lot. Yeah, my dad's told me that for his funeral he wouldn't sail away. Yeah, and I've said he can't have it. Because that's yours. Play it again.
That's right. Oh, damn it.
Because it'd be too sad.
Yeah. You won't be able to disconnect that song. Yeah.
At the moment, I'll hear it now, and I just remember that conversation. Just goosebumps, and because I find that I'm not musical at all. Can't sing. I've never been able to play an instrument, but music is something that really connects with me. Yeah. I just love listening to music, and it can be anything. It can be anything from
anything, yeah,
through to heavy rock.
Yeah, I'm like that too. I have an eclectic taste as well. Yeah.
Just my Spotify playlists are very weird.
Yeah. Yeah.
Just goes from one genre to another, every other song, and I think it kind of is my de-stress thing.
Yeah.
Listening to music.
You
can just lose yourself in it.
Yeah.
And similarly for me, reading. I read a book and I get totally immersed in the story.
Yeah.
And it's another way of like experiencing something different.
Yeah. Escape. Yeah.
And, it's a good book and a good song are hugely beneficial, I think.
And I think it's good for you in every way. They say, like, if when you read a book, you live another life within a span of hours. Yeah. And I know for sure, like, just seeing and reading things about music, whether you listen, whether you participate, play it, it's good for you. Like, what it does to your brain, what they've shown, what it does to the mind is just incredible. Yeah. So, and I don't really know anybody who doesn't like music. Even, it doesn't mean playing an instrument or anything like that, but who doesn't like music? I've never met, I've never met someone who's
I
like...
wouldn't be friends with them.
Well, it wouldn't make any sense. I've never met someone who didn't like some kind of music. Yeah.
Whatever it may be.
Whatever it is, yeah. It's just part of us. It's part of being human.
It's something that, you can see it's been part of our development as a species.
Yeah.
Very early on.
Absolutely.
A method of communication and
yeah.
Yeah. Escapism, as you say.
Yeah, escapism, yeah.
Have you got any unpopular opinions?
Like, more specifically...
is there something that you believe strongly that goes against the grain of what the general...
Yeah. I gotta think about that. I think I might have some, statements made or opinions that could be initially misunderstood.
Okay.
But if explained, and if explained without, sort of an emotional filter or a bias, it could be reasonable and suddenly go from unpopular to, that kind of makes sense, even if it's still an agree to disagree.
Yep.
Yeah.
Okay.
I'll just put the pork chop on the table. But I talk about, we're going to just jump into politics.
Yeah.
So the Trump effect. Here we go. And
I was trying to stay away from the bottom.
That's okay.
I'm fine.
Honestly, it's okay. I have friends and family members that really disagree with what I'm about to say because it has the T word in it.
Yeah.
But what I mean by what I like about the Trump effect, and we could say that there are many Trump effects, like plural, but one of the things I like is how it shakes the system up, and the system allows for outliers and non sort of career politicians to, good or bad, whether you like, dislike, respect, disrespect that particular person, in this case, Trump.
Yeah.
What's neat is that others go, maybe I don't have to be a governor or a senator or a congressperson or part of some elite.
Still like Reagan, I guess.
Yeah.
Stepping in.
Politics, stepping in. An outlier, an outsider. And there's no doubt that he is. And I'm not saying, and in fact, I kind of want a fresh restart, with the upcoming election. I'd prefer new, fresh characters to be ahead. It doesn't seem to be the case. No. And that's part of the good thing about the system that I'm talking about is there's a mandatory refresh button pressed every 4 to 8 years. Yep. And when I say the Trump effect, it's unpopular. But what I mean is, maybe I shouldn't call it the Trump effect. It's more of the sort of outsider effect or the outlier effect. Like, introduce more.
Dream, isn't it, really?
I think so.
I kind of don't like the idea of the American dream because it's kind of sold as everyone can be a billionaire.
Yeah.
But really what it means is everyone's got opportunity.
There's opportunity. You're not stovepiped. You're not locked. There isn't this hereditary career path or there shouldn't be, or it doesn't have to be. I mean, there still is. And so I think it's kind of nice. And, you know, I think in this last sort of like lead up to the sort of recent campaigning, I'm not saying that I agree or disagree with this one person, but there was an individual, Vivek Ramaswamy, who was inspired because of the sort of, we'll call it the outsider, outlier Trump effect, but I know it's unpopular. Yeah. I should probably call it something else. Yes. But what I'm trying to say is a newcomer or outsider effect. Yeah. Or, is that reasonable? I think
it is. Yeah. No, I mean, it's, when you explain it, yes. I mean, it's the idea that, you know, in any political system, somebody who's not a career politician can be a leader is a good thing.
It's a good thing.
One of the things that frustrates me is when you see people in politics who've only ever been in politics. They've never had a real life. They've never been out and got a job and worked for somebody that was different to being a politician.
And you hear about it enough where you hear, like, you know, boards of directors and senior management teams often at certain critical points in the organizations, you know, if things aren't going well, they need to, maybe I should call this sort of a mix it up, shake it up effect. You know, a catalyst. Let's try something different. A catalyst for change. And I'm not endorsing one direction or another. I'm just saying that effect. It shakes the system up. And a system that allows to be shaken up, I'm not saying that everything about what's going on is good, but I'm just saying that it's good to shake it up and mix it up once in a while.
I think that America's social standing, if you want to call it that, has fallen quite a few points over the last few years.
I agree. Yeah.
I think there's it's no longer seen as a beacon of civilization.
Well, you know, it's definitely. I think everything oscillates. I think everything does tend to go in sort of this wave function, and there's definitely been ups and downs, and I think it's important to realize, as you know, an American-born person, it remains a very immature experiment. It's not in this like hundreds of years, thousands of years empire or anything like that. It remains highly experimental.
Well, it's only 200-300 years old.
That's right.
Country.
Yeah.
It's about the same age as New Zealand. When you think about it, in how long it's been on the world stage as a country. And prior to that, a lot of smaller nations. That really didn't have a global presence, I guess. And what's going on right now?
And what's going on right now, what we're seeing is true, is definitely stressing the system. It's definitely testing the experiment. It's definitely new data.
I've kind of a few times thought that it's looking like it's going to go break back up again.
And you know, maybe it's time. It's interesting you say that.
In Europe, with all the nation states separating out. You know, is it beyond the realms of possibility that something like that might happen in the US?
No, I don't think so. You know, a few friends of mine have said something along the lines of a civil war is upon. Look, I don't know, and it's certainly not something that I have any, you know, acumen to give a, you know, expert opinion on. However, things go in cycles, and it would not be the first civil war of the United States, and this is just me, and I don't want to offend anyone by saying this, but the United States is a different country. It's kind of like 50 countries, or if you go by region, maybe 5 big unions united.
Yeah.
They're different,
Yeah.
and it's complex.
Different people, different ideas.
Yeah.
Different political views.
There are different laws in every state, and it's still joined by a federal law, a set of laws, and it's complex. It's constantly changing.
Yeah.
Certain things that can't change maybe should change. And I'm just saying that it is an experiment, and yet it remains, and it'll be interesting to see what happens. Yeah.
Yes.
Yeah.
There is a famous Chinese curse where you live in interesting times.
It's like
When you think about it initially, you think, that sounds great.
Yeah.
But interesting doesn't necessarily mean good.
No.
World War II was quite interesting.
Oh gosh, yeah.
It wasn't a good thing.
Wasn't a good thing. And yet, I mean, war seems to be, I think I read somewhere, it's like every, 11 years or something, there was a major conflict in the last, I don't know what span of time. And, we were talking about aliens that might be far away. Look, if they were close by, it's sort of Star Trek Vulcan thing. Would the Vulcans really want to talk to us at this stage? Probably not. They're like, no, they're not ready.
They look pretty uncivilized.
We just, from the outside perspective, it'd be like, no way. Like, what language do you use?
Species.
Yeah. And
We've already got the Klingons.
We're not ready. And it's not because of the warp drive or anything technological. It's more like they have not sorted themselves out yet. And
do you think?
Yeah.
Do you think longer term we will? Do you think there's?
I hope so.
A possibility that we'll learn to actually get on.
The optimist in me says yes. Maybe the pragmatist or realist would say it will just continue to be a mishmash, a mix of an ups and downs and oscillations. Again, I mean, I'm an aerospace engineering guy. I'm a pilot. I just drive vehicles at the end of the day.
But your life experience, I mean, I look at the way things are, and I think that at some point, whether it's a deliberate act on our part or whether the environment dictates it, we'll end up being corrected.
Yeah.
In the way that you had mass extinctions that correct
population. Yes.
And it happens regularly in our ecosystem, and at some point it's going to happen to us.
It's going to happen to us, and maybe that's what it is. It's like, does it take something that's so common and so critical that would unify us or eliminate a lot of us to the point where we'd have to unify, the sort of rise of the machines, sort of AI, Terminator threat, or a pandemic that's worse. I don't know. It will be interesing.
For sure.
I just keep an open mind, and that's all you can do, and control what you can control, right?
Exactly.
Yeah.
Hope it doesn't happen during your lifetime.
Well, it might. I mean, it's just really hard to say at this point, because right now we live in like really fluctuating times. This year, I mean, the last couple of years have been a wild ride.
Yes.
Yeah.
I mean, you look at you've had the pandemic overlaid with a very much increased level of conflict in Europe.
Yeah.
And the Middle East cooking unpleasantly as well.
Yeah.
Then you look at what's going on in Africa, and you look at what's going on in Asia generally.
A lot of brewing, a lot of hot spots. Yeah. Very, very thin ice that we sit on. And, as much as I am an American, I love my country as one normally would. Mm-hmm. I do find, I'm now New Zealand and U.S. dual citizen. I do find New Zealand to be this interesting lifeboat. If there's, this thermonuclear catastrophe, if there's a zombie apocalypse, if there's the rise of the machines, if there's Independence Day, alien invasion, even if we know they're really far away. Yeah. I don't think New Zealand itself is a center of gravity bullseye target for any of that.
No.
It sits
too small a population and too far away.
it's relatively off the radar.
There's a lot of maps that don't actually show it.
I know, or you zoom out and then it disappears.
Yeah. So I think you're right. I mean, it's kind of a safe haven almost.
It is a safe haven, and I think a lot of people see it that way too. Those who know about it.
I think you saw quite a lot of that during the pandemic, with people wanting to get to New Zealand.
Yeah, and pay high dollar.
It's a safe place.
Yes.
And, it was a lifeboat.
It was a lifeboat.
We did go through some stuff, but nowhere near as bad as the rest of the world.
Oh, relatively nil. Yeah, absolutely.
We still had a lot of freedom, which other parts of the world didn't. So
it's just population and oceans and walls. Oceans are walls.
Exactly. And the fact there's so few of us on the island, we're naturally separated anyway.
Oh, it just is it. And that's why, comparing countries, it's easy to say compare New Zealand to the United States. Well, that's not a fair comparison. They're two words, and you go, okay, that has this many words. That's a country too. No, that's not really a fair comparison. I grew up around, Manhattan area, and there's more people jammed on the island, just the island of Manhattan, compared to all of New Zealand's population. It's just crazy.
London.
Yeah.
Population 10 million.
Crazy. Double.
The amount of people that commute in and out of London on a daily basis for work is more than the population of New Zealand.
It's wild.
It's okay.
It's okay. Yeah. It's hard to fathom, but it's true.
Yeah. So you are right. I mean, it is a country, New Zealand, but it's very different.
It's
to a lot of
different.
places.
It's different. Yeah.
Which is good.
It's a really good thing that, it's nice, there's all this talk about diversity, and we forget how diverse all the different countries are, and New Zealand is a special level of diversity in itself. It's a different type, and you have to come here to understand that.
Yeah, absolutely.
Mm-hmm.
Excellent. Well, I've run out of questions.
Yeah.
Is there anything else you'd like to share?
I don't think so. We could just keep going if you had more, and I don't know. I mean, it's just been an absolute pleasure. I could honestly just sit here and we could just keep pontificating.
Yes, well, I'm quite happy for you to come back another time.
Yeah. Let me know. Absolutely. It's just fun. It's just fun to do this. Yeah.
So thank you very much.
Yeah. Thank you.
Great talking to you.
Thank you for listening to my podcast, A Penny for Your Thoughts, with me, Steve Penny. I hope you've enjoyed today's conversation, and I look forward to sharing my next conversation with you in the future. Thank you.